My wife joked, "Look at his dad bod. He should be grateful I haven't cheated yet," in front of her entire family. So I taught her a lesson she'll never forget. Hey Reddit, Kevin here, 36 male. My wife told her entire family I should be grateful that she hadn't cheated on me. 6 months later, there I was, walking through my own front door on a Tuesday night, and the first thing I see is my wife Madeline and her sister Fiona camped out at the dining table. Burger wrappers everywhere, puffy eyes, napkins balled up like little surrender flags. Fiona launched into it before I could even put my bag down. I was immature. I was emotionally neglectful. I was tearing my wife down. I was parading around in front of the neighbor, like some kind of midlife crisis on legs. I needed to apologize. I needed to do better. Madeline sat there nodding along, dropping in a thank you exactly every few seconds, like Fiona was her defense attorney giving a closing statement. I let them go for about 5 minutes, arms crossed, leaning on the kitchen counter. They still had no idea what was in my bag by the door. Anyway, here's how we got here. Madeline and I had been married 6 years, together for 8. We lived in a house in Westchase that I'd inherited from my grandfather. Somewhere around year 5, things started going bad. Not in a blow-up, throw stuff kind of way. More like slow leaks you don't notice until you're standing in a puddle. The intimacy died first. I'd reach over in bed and she'd exhale like I'd just asked her to help me move a couch. At first, I told myself she was tired. She worked at the Hillsborough County School District office doing admin stuff. Filing, phones, paperwork. Not exactly coal mining, but I gave her the benefit of the doubt. So I backed off, gave her space. Figured she'd come to me when she was ready. She never did. Then came the excuses. Headache, long day, not in the mood, stomach thing. The classic greatest hits of marital deflection. I tried planning a date night once, made a reservation at a place in South Tampa she'd mentioned wanting to try. She said she'd rather stay in, so we stayed in. She watched reality TV on her phone in bed, while I sat in the living room wondering when I became optional. Then came the body comments. Look, I'd put on some weight. 35, desk job, married life. It happens. I wasn't in great shape, but I wasn't a disaster either. Madeline, though, she found a real hobby in pointing it out. We'd be at Target, and she'd see some guy in a fitted shirt and go, "Must be nice to have a metabolism." Just loud enough for me to hear. She'd poke my stomach while I was cooking and say, "Someone's been enjoying their own food too much, huh?" Then laugh. Here's the thing that got me later. Once I had some distance from it all, Madeline was heavier than me, by a solid margin. She hadn't worked out in years. Her diet was fast food, frozen meals, and vending machine snacks. And I never said a word about it. Not once. I actually used to compliment her when she'd stand in front of the mirror looking frustrated with how her clothes fit. Told her she looked great. Meant it at the time. The comments got bolder. One time we were at a barbecue at her friend's place, and some dude showed up in a tank top, clearly someone who lived at the gym. And Madeline nudged her friend and said, right in front of me, "Some men just care about themselves, you know?" Her friend at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. Another time we were grocery shopping and she picked up a bag of chips I'd grabbed, looked at it, looked at me, and put it back on the shelf. Didn't say a word. Just that little head shake. I stood in that aisle for a second, then kept walking. That's the kind of thing that doesn't sound like much when you say it out loud. But when it's your wife doing it to you in a Publix on a Tuesday, it lands different. She also started doing this thing where she'd scroll Instagram fitness reels and leave her phone screen up on the couch between us. Guys with six-packs running on beaches, doing pull-ups. She never said, "This is what I want you to look like." Didn't have to. And when I'd glance over, she'd go, "What? It's just fitness content. I'm trying to get motivated." She never got motivated. Never went to the gym, though. The motivation was always aimed at me, wrapped in enough plausible deniability that I'd look crazy if I called it out. I didn't call it out. I just absorbed it. That's what you do when you're trying to keep a marriage alive. You file it away and pretend it doesn't bother you. Then the mask slipped. Twice. The first time was a Thursday night. I came home late from work, walked in quiet, shoes off at the door, habit from years of trying not to disturb her. Madeline was in the bedroom and didn't hear me come in. I was heading down the hallway when I heard her on the phone with a friend. Speaker on. Door cracked open. Her friend asked how things were going between us, and Madeline said, and I'm not paraphrasing here, "Honestly, I look at him sometimes and I'm just repulsed." Her voice was flat and bored. "He's let himself go and he doesn't even care. It's embarrassing. I don't even want him touching me anymore." I stood in that hallway for about 10 seconds. Then I walked to the kitchen, set my keys down, and made dinner like I hadn't heard a thing. She came out 20 minutes later, smiled at me, and asked what I was making. Normal voice. Sweet tone. That was the night something in me started to crack. But I still didn't do anything about it, Because you tell yourself it was just venting, right? People say stuff to their friends they don't really mean. That's what I told myself. The second time she was talking to her sister Fiona. I was in the garage on a Saturday afternoon working on a shelf I'd been meaning to fix. One of those projects that sits on your list for like 4 months before you finally get to it. Madeline was in the kitchen, maybe 10 feet from the garage door. Phone on speaker. I could hear everything through the wall. Fiona was asking about weekend plans, and Madeline said, Kevin wants to go to that new place in South Tampa. But honestly, I don't even want to be seen with him right now. Fiona laughed. Madeline kept going. He asked me last week if I thought we were okay. Like, read the room. Of course we're not okay. I just don't have the energy to deal with the conversation. Then, the part that really stuck. He thinks everything's fine because I haven't left yet. He'd fall apart without me, and he doesn't even know it. She was rewriting the whole marriage. In her version, she was suffering quietly, while I walked around clueless and happy. No mention of the months of insults. No mention of the date nights she rejected, the affection she dodged, the 100 small things I did to try and make it work while she kept pushing me away. She'd built a story where she was the one carrying all the weight, and she was selling it to her sister like it was gospel, and Fiona was buying every word. I didn't bring it up that night or any night after. Just stood in the garage holding a drill, staring at the wall, feeling something inside me go very quiet. A couple weeks later, we went to the monthly family dinner at her parents' place in Carrollwood. That's where the last thread snapped. Her parents did dinner once a month. Her mom cooked too much food, her dad talked about his lawn, and Fiona found a way to make everything about herself. I'd eat, nod, and survive the evening. Low bar, but it worked. This dinner was late October, still warm enough outside that stepping out felt like getting hugged by a wet towel. Her mom had made pulled chicken sandwiches. Conversation was moving fine. Fiona ranting about coworker drama, her dad explaining a new sprinkler head he'd installed, until the topic drifted to relationships and what men owe their wives. She was going off about how husbands need to step up and earn their place. Then she turned to Madeline and said, "At least you got one of the decent ones." And Madeline laughed, this performative, condescending thing. She looked right at me and said, in front of everyone at that table, "Decent? He should be grateful I still haven't cheated on him." Dead silence. Her dad stared at his plate. Her mom adjusted a napkin. Fiona had a half smirk she couldn't quite commit to. And Fiona's husband, the guy who never talks, just looked at me with something I can only describe as brotherhood. Like he'd been sitting in that exact chair with that exact expression at some point himself. I sat there, fork in hand, staring at the woman I married, who had just announced to her whole family that staying faithful to me was an act of charity. Said it casually, like it was a punchline everyone was supposed to appreciate. She backpedaled. "I'm kidding, obviously. Relax." Took a bite of her sandwich like nothing happened. Her mom asked about the weather. Her dad mentioned a hurricane advisory. Everyone moved on. Everyone except me. I didn't say a word the rest of dinner. Drove home in silence. She tried small talk in the car. Asked if I wanted to stop for ice cream. I said no. She asked if I was being weird about the joke. I said I was tired. She said I was being sensitive. I didn't respond. That night, I slept in the guest room. She didn't come check. Didn't knock. Didn't text. Not even a "hey, you okay?" through the door. 6 years of marriage, and the woman couldn't be bothered to walk 15 feet down the hallway after humiliating me in front of her entire family. I lay there staring at the ceiling fan, and for the first time in years, my head was completely clear. Something just powered down. The part of me that had been making excuses for her. Convincing myself it wasn't that bad, that part just stopped. Done. I moved into the guest room for good. Didn't announce it. Didn't make a speech. Just started sleeping there. Madeline noticed on night 3. "So this is a thing now?" I told her the mattress was better for my back. She rolled her eyes and went back to her phone. I stopped doing her laundry too. For years, I'd just thrown her clothes in with mine because it was easier. That week, I started only washing my stuff. First time she noticed, she stood in the hallway holding an empty hamper. "Did you not do laundry?" I said. "I did mine." She stared at me for a long moment. I went back to what I was doing. She never asked again, just started doing her own loads, badly and resentfully, slamming the dryer door every time like it had personally wronged her. I stopped starting everything else too. No more trying to hug her when she got home. No more suggesting we watch something together. No more asking about her day when I already knew the answer would be one word and a screen. I skipped the next family dinner, and the one after that. Madeline went alone and didn't ask why. I was civil, said good morning and good night, made sure bills were paid. I just became neutral, like a coworker you share an office with but don't really know. Took her about 2 weeks to notice the full shift. She came into the kitchen one morning while I was making eggs. "You've been weird lately." I said I was fine. "You're not fine, you're being cold." I said, I'm being normal. She stared at me for a few seconds like she was waiting for me to crack, then walked away mumbling something I didn't catch and honestly didn't care to. A few days later, she went harder. Are you mad at me or something? I said no. Then why are you acting like this? I said, like what? She couldn't put it into words. Because the thing she was really upset about was that I'd stopped orbiting around her. And there's no clean way to demand that out loud without sounding like exactly the kind of person who would demand that. So she'd huff and retreat to the bedroom. This became our routine. She'd probe. I'd give her nothing. She'd get frustrated, reset the next day. The thing about emotionally checking out of a marriage is that it gives you all this time and energy back that you didn't know you were spending. I'd been pouring everything into managing Madeline's moods, dodging her comments, planning things she'd reject. When I stopped, I suddenly had hours in my day and space in my head that hadn't been there in years. So I started going to the gym, not because of her comments, not as some revenge body project. I just needed somewhere to go that wasn't that house, and something to do that wasn't thinking about how my marriage had collapsed. Found a place near Dale Mabry with a decent weight section and a boxing area in the back. Started going 4 mornings a week before work, then 5. Then I added evening sessions twice a week when I didn't feel like going home. Boxing was the thing that really stuck. My first session, Cal had me on the heavy bag, and I was swinging like a guy trying to kill a wasp. Arms everywhere, no form, breathing like I just sprinted a mile. Cal watched me for about 30 seconds, walked over, moved my feet like 6 inches apart, pushed my elbows down. You're not fighting the bag, you're talking to it. Slow down. I felt stupid for about 10 minutes. Then something clicked. I threw a jab that actually landed clean and felt it travel from my feet through my whole body. Drove home that night with the windows down and my hands sore. And for the first time in months, my brain was quiet. Not thinking about Madeline, not thinking about anything, just quiet. The first month, nothing really changed except everything hurt. Muscles I didn't even know existed were filing formal complaints. My hands were raw from the bag. But by month 2, things started shifting. Clothes fit different. My face leaned out. I had more energy during the day, slept harder at night. By month 3, people at work were noticing. A coworker asked if I'd changed something. I said, yeah, my whole life. She laughed. I wasn't really joking. I wasn't doing any of this for Madeline. I was doing it because for the first time in a long time, I was doing something that was entirely mine. Every rep, every round on the bag, every morning where I dragged myself out of bed at 5:30 and chose the gym instead of lying there, that was mine. Nobody could comment on it, grade it, or compare it to some stranger on Instagram. I also started hanging out with my boys again. Guys I'd slowly drifted from because Madeline always had something to say about me going out. You're leaving again? Must be nice to have free time. I guess I'll just sit here alone then. The standard guilt trip toolkit that somehow worked on me for years. Without that weight on me, I was grabbing food with them after work, hitting the driving range on weekends, watching games at someone's place on Sundays, just being a person again, instead of a guy who needed permission to have friends. My buddy Scott, been through his own divorce 2 years back, noticed the change first. He'd been the one trying to get me out of the house for months, and I'd always had some excuse that was really Madeline's excuse coming out of my mouth. Now I was actually showing up. He didn't say much about it, just clapped me on the shoulder one night at dinner and said, there he is. That was enough. Madeline watched all this from the sidelines with increasing confusion. One night she actually said, you look different. I said, thanks, and kept making my dinner. She stood there wanting me to say more. When I didn't, she walked away looking thrown off. She still made comments. Saw me packing my gym bag once and said, careful, don't hurt yourself trying to be 25 again. But the sting was gone. I didn't flinch, didn't explain, didn't engage, just zipped the bag and walked out. That's when I started seeing something new in her eyes. Not remorse, fear. Like she'd just realized the guy she'd been taking for granted had stopped caring what she thought, and she had no idea what to do about it. 4 months after that dinner, I was a different person in that house. Not some overnight movie thing, just consistent. I'd dropped real weight, put on actual muscle, and my whole energy had shifted because I wasn't carrying the emotional load of a woman who treated me like a consolation prize anymore. Madeline was spiraling, slowly at first, then faster. Started with the questions. Why are you going to the gym so much? Who do you talk to there? You didn't used to care about how you looked. All in that tone. Not curious, not concerned, suspicious. I gave her nothing. I like going. Nobody. People change. Short, boring answers that drove her crazy because she couldn't find a thread to pull. Then she tried a different angle. One night, she came into the guest room wearing something she hadn't worn since our second anniversary, stood in the doorway doing the lean against the frame thing, hair done, perfume on, the whole production. I was lying in bed scrolling my phone. Looked up. "You need something?" She said, "I thought we could spend some time together." I said, "I'm good. Thanks, though." Rolled over. She hadn't been rejected by me once in 6 years of marriage. Not once. I was always the one reaching, always the one starting things, always the one getting turned down with a sigh, or a headache, or a not tonight and pretending it didn't sting. I'd spent years being the one who wanted more and got less. Now the roles had completely flipped and she couldn't process it. She stood there for a solid 10 seconds, mouth slightly open, then walked out without a word. I heard her close the master bedroom door. Silence. I went back to my phone and slept like a rock. She tried 2 more times over the next week, once with a movie suggestion. We could watch something together, like we used to, said in this soft, almost sweet voice I hadn't heard in years. The other time she actually cooked dinner from scratch, which was rare enough to count as a minor historic event in our household. Set the table and everything. Both times I said no thanks, ate my own food, went about my night. By the way, that dinner she cooked, it was spaghetti, and she overcooked the pasta so bad it was basically glue. I mentioned that because even when she tried, it was a half effort. Each rejection landed a little harder. I could see it in how she carried herself. She was shrinking each time, getting more confused. She wasn't used to chasing. She'd spent years being chased and swatting my hand away. Now the hand was gone and she didn't know what to do with herself. Then the accusations started. I was clearly seeing someone. I was trying to make her feel bad on purpose. I was punishing her for no reason. She'd pace around the kitchen behind me while I ate dinner, listing complaints like she was building a legal case against a guy whose only crime was going to the gym and minding his own business. She'd ask questions that weren't really questions. "You think you're better than me now? You think some gym muscles change who you are? You think any woman is actually going to want you?" I'd sit there eating and let it wash over me. Didn't defend, didn't argue, just kept chewing. She'd eventually tire herself out, storm off to the bedroom, slam the door, and I'd finish my meal in silence. Those were some of the most peaceful dinners I'd had in years. Then she crossed a line I didn't see coming. I came home from a Saturday boxing session and left my phone on the kitchen counter while I showered. When I came back out, towel around my neck, Madeline was standing at the counter holding my phone, trying different passcodes. She hadn't cracked it. I'd changed the code weeks ago, but she was going at it with real determination, thumbing in combos one after another. I stood in the doorway and watched her for a few seconds. She didn't even notice me at first. When she looked up and saw me standing there, she didn't apologize, didn't look embarrassed, didn't even put the phone down, went straight to offense. "Who is she, Kevin?" "There's nobody." "Then why'd you change your password?" "Because it's my phone. Don't touch my stuff again." She put the phone down hard on the counter, hard enough that I checked the screen later for cracks. "This is what you've become? Secrets? This isn't the man I married." I picked up my phone, pocketed it, and walked to the guest room. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't give her the argument she was clearly trying to start. Just removed myself. Through the wall, I could hear her opening and closing cabinets for the next 20 minutes, which was her version of a tantrum when she didn't have an audience. I put in my earbuds and did my stretches. Meanwhile, and this is the part she didn't know about, I'd been quietly handling business. I'd contacted a divorce lawyer, a real one. Referral from Scott, who knew which attorneys in Tampa actually fought for their clients. We met at his office off Kennedy Boulevard, and I laid everything out. The house was mine. Inherited from my grandfather, title in my name only, never added Madeline. My lawyer confirmed the house wasn't on the table, period. I opened a separate bank account and started routing my direct deposit there. Didn't drain the joint account, just redirected new income while still covering shared bills. Madeline never checked the statements. She just assumed money appeared on its own, I guess. I also kept a log in my phone. Dates, comments, incidents. Her exact words, times, who was present. My lawyer said documentation was everything, especially when the other side tries to rewrite the story later. Which, yeah, she absolutely did. Now here's where it got interesting. Our neighbor Evelyn lived 3 houses down. Moved in about a year before all this started. She was beautiful. No getting around that. But she was also just normal, friendly in a low-key way. Waved hello, kept her yard nice, never caused drama. We'd exchanged maybe 20 words total in a year, mostly about garbage pickup and a stray cat that kept wandering the block. One Saturday morning, I was loading stuff into my truck in the driveway. Gym bag, cooler, heading to meet the guys at a park for a cookout. Evelyn was walking her dog and stopped to say hi. We talked for about 3 minutes. She said something like, "Looks like you've been putting in work. Good for you." Casual, friendly. Madeline was watching from the kitchen window. I know this because by the time I walked back inside to grab my keys, she was standing in the hallway with her arms crossed and that jaw-set energy that tells you fireworks is about to happen. So that's what this is about. She was already going. The gym, the new clothes, all of it. You're showing off for the neighbor. I told her it was ridiculous, and Evelyn was just being polite. Polite? She was practically drooling over you. You stood out there with that little smile on your face, like you were on a date in your own driveway. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. She followed me down the hallway, getting louder. You think I don't see what's happening? You think I'm stupid? I stopped at the front door, turned around, and for the first time in months, I said something back that had actual teeth. Looked her dead in the eye. Maybe if you spent half this energy on your own life, you wouldn't be spiraling over a neighbor saying hi. One sentence, flat, no yelling. Just the same energy she'd been feeding me for over a year. Served right back. One time. After months of swallowing every comment, every poke, every comparison, every sideways glance at a stranger's body, meant to make me feel small. And she completely lost it. Are you serious right now? You're calling me the problem? After everything I've put up with? You're hurting me, Kevin. You're being cruel and you don't even care. Are you saying I'm fat? Huh? I mean, the irony. This woman had spent the better part of a year poking my stomach, calling me lazy, comparing me to random gym guys on her phone, and telling her family I should be grateful she hadn't cheated. She'd called me repulsive on a phone call she thought I couldn't hear. Told her sister she was embarrassed to be seen with me. But one sentence from me, and suddenly she was the victim. Suddenly I was cruel. Suddenly her feelings were sacred, and mine had never existed. I didn't respond, just walked out and went to the cookout. Scott grilled ribs that were borderline life-changing. Seriously, the man should quit his job and open a stand. I ate 2 plates, threw a football around, and didn't think about Madeline for 4 straight hours. New personal record. By the time I got home, Madeline had called Fiona, her 2 closest friends, and apparently every woman in her phone contacts. The narrative was already packaged up and sent out like a press release. Kevin was cruel. Kevin was body-shaming me. Kevin was emotionally abusive. Kevin was probably cheating with the hot neighbor. Kevin went to the gym specifically to humiliate her. Every piece of context that might explain what I said, the months of her comments, the dinner, the constant comparisons, had been neatly edited out. She was the victim. I was the villain. Story was airtight, as long as nobody asked me for my side. And nobody was going to ask me for my side. Fiona left a voicemail the next day, 5 minutes long, all about how real men don't tear their wives down, and how I needed to look in the mirror and ask what kind of husband I was being. I listened to the whole thing, deleted it, and went to boxing. Hit the bag a little harder than usual. Cal looked at me and said, "Good day?" I said, "Getting there." For the next couple weeks, Madeline went back and forth between cold silence and crying on the couch. Some nights she'd be furious, slamming cabinets, leaving the TV volume cranked up on purpose. Other nights she'd sit in the dark living room when I got home, puffy-eyed, waiting for me to ask what was wrong. I didn't ask. I noted every incident in my log. Dates, times, her exact words. My lawyer was pleased. Then came the night I walked into the burger table. I already mentioned it at the beginning of the story. Here's what I didn't tell you yet. Fiona looked up first when I walked in. Her eyes did this whole scan thing. Up, down, pause. Last time she'd seen me was at that family dinner months ago, when I was 30 pounds heavier and running on fumes. Now I was leaner, had shoulders, and was wearing a fitted Henley because all my old shirts were too big. I could literally see her brain buffering. She opened her mouth, closed it, reset. Wait, what happened to you? Madeline's head snapped toward Fiona so fast I thought she'd pull something. Fiona, don't. Then Fiona reset and launched into the lecture. I let them go. 5 minutes of being told what a terrible husband I was. When they finally stopped, Fiona to breathe, Madeline to blow her nose, I walked to my work bag by the door, pulled out a manila envelope, walked back to the table and set it down right between the burger wrappers and the iced tea. Madeline, you're being served. She opened the envelope with shaking hands, read the first page, flipped to the second. I watched the exact second, petition for dissolution of marriage, hit her brain. The sound that came out of Madeline was somewhere between a scream and a gasp. Not words at first, just this raw noise. Then the words came. You can't do this. You can't just do this. We're married, Kevin. You can't just throw away 6 years. I told her my lawyer's contact info was inside if she had questions. My voice was level. My hands were steady. Months of prep, months of logging, months of getting my life in order while she was busy building a victim story. All of it had led to this moment, and I was ready. Fiona stood up so fast her chair scraped across the tile, pointed her finger at me like she was casting something. You planned this. You planned this whole thing. You've been setting her up this entire time. I looked at Fiona. I've been setting myself up? There's a difference. Then I grabbed a water from the fridge and headed to the guest room. At the doorway, I turned around one last time. Madeline was clutching the papers. Fiona still had her finger in the air. The burgers sat forgotten between them, getting cold. I closed the door. Through the walls, Madeline sobbing, Fiona on the phone, calling their mom probably, or a lawyer, or both. I put in my earbuds, turned on a podcast about some random cold case I'd been following, and did my stretches before bed. Best sleep I'd had in years. Divorce isn't fast. Anyone who tells you it's clean and quick either had money to burn or didn't actually go through one. Mine took about 4.5 months, which my lawyer said was actually efficient. The house was never in dispute. Inherited from my grandfather, my name on the title, separate property. Her lawyer tried the upkeep argument, basically saying she contributed to the home by living in it, I guess. My records showed I covered taxes, insurance, repairs, basically everything. The judge didn't buy it. We split what was left in the joint account and called it a day. The house stayed mine. Madeline fought it hard the first 2 weeks. Non-stop texts. Please, can we talk? Then, you're going to regret this. Then, I gave you the best years of my life. Then, the classic, you'll never find someone who loves you like I do. Which was technically true, in the sense that I was actively trying to avoid that exact kind of love going forward. She also tried showing up at the house at random times, ringing the doorbell, standing on the porch like if she waited long enough I'd open the door and tell her it was all a big misunderstanding. I didn't. I responded to none of the texts. My lawyer handled everything. Fiona tried one more ambush. Showed up at the house on a Thursday, unannounced. Started a lecture on the front porch about how I was destroying a family. I told her any concerns should go through attorneys, and I had nothing to discuss with her. She called me heartless. I said, probably. Have a good night, Fiona. Closed the door. Heard her standing on the porch for about 30 seconds like she was buffering, then she left. Madeline moved in with Fiona temporarily. From what I heard, it was miserable for everyone involved. Fiona's place was a 2-bedroom apartment in Carrollwood, and Fiona's husband, the quiet guy, apparently had some strong opinions about his sister-in-law taking over his couch with 2 suitcases and an attitude problem. Can't imagine why. Word was he started spending most evenings at a buddy's place just to dodge the nightly complaint sessions happening in his own living room. Madeline and Fiona on his couch every night dissecting my crimes, while he tried to exist in his own home. I almost felt bad for the guy. The smear campaign ran for a while. Madeline told anyone who'd listen that I'd been emotionally abusive, that I'd changed overnight, that I'd been chasing the neighbor for months. She posted vague stuff on social media, the kind of quotes about knowing your worth, and when someone shows you who they really are, that everyone could decode. Some people bought it. The ones who mattered. My actual friends, my family, the guys who'd watched me drag myself through the last year. They knew the real story. That was enough. Divorce got finalized in September. I signed the papers, drove home, and sat on my porch for about an hour doing nothing. Just existing in my own house, in my own silence, without anyone making me feel small for being there. A lizard ran across the railing and scared the absolute life out of me for half a second. Very dignified moment. I kept the routine. Gym mornings. Boxing twice a week. Cooked real meals. As for Evelyn, there was no dramatic moment. It was slow and normal. A couple weeks after the divorce was final, I was fixing a sprinkler head out front, and she walked by with her dog. We talked, longer this time. That turned into a walk together a week later. Her dog pulled her toward me while I was checking the mail, and we ended up walking the whole block. Then I ran into her at a coffee spot near the gym. Then she texted me about the stray cat coming back. Small stuff. The kind of thing that builds when nobody's forcing it. When I floated the idea of getting food together, she was straight up about it. Said she doesn't do rebound situations and wasn't trying to be someone's recovery project. I respected that. Told her I wasn't looking for a rebound either, just a taco. She laughed and said she'd think about it. Took her about 2 weeks to say yes. We went on an actual date about 6 weeks after the divorce was final. And it was really good. The divorce left some marks. Not gonna pretend it didn't. There are nights where I think about what I put up with and why I stayed so long. I replay that dinner table comment and wonder why that was my breaking point, and not the 100 things that came before it. But those thoughts fade faster now. They still hit me sometimes, but they don't stick like they used to. The house is quiet. I moved back into the master bedroom the week she left. New sheets, clean start. I still see her family around sometimes. Her dad nodded at me in the Home Depot parking lot last month, which for that man is basically a bear hug. Fiona avoids me like I'm a speed camera. Fine by me. And every once in a while, I'll be in the driveway loading up my truck, and Evelyn will walk by with her dog Biscuit, and she'll give me this warm smile. Life is good. I've never been happier. Edit. For everyone asking, yes, the stray cat came back. His name is Vinny now. He lives under my porch and judges everyone equally. Most unbiased resident in the neighborhood. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks. Stories. Thanks. Stories. Thanks. Stories. Thanks.